Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Peace be upon you all. Terima kasih atas kedatangannya semua mahasiswa-mahasiswa Fakultas Filsafat, dan juga terima kasih teman-teman Ibu Iva dan dosen-dosen yang ada di sini. Ini bersama kita ada Profesor Dr. Christoph Stuckelberger. Jadi beliau ini orang Swiss, ya, yang dulu mendirikan Globe Ethics. Jadi Globe Ethics ini adalah organisasi yang berlokasi di Geneva, Switzerland, dan sudah berjalan 20 tahunan. Ya, jadi Globe Ethics ini adalah organisasi mungkin online tentang etika yang terbesar di dunia, gitu ya. Jadi it's the largest online resources on all things related to ethics di dunia ini. Dan we have around maybe 250,000 or so members, ya. Jadi ada anggota 250 ribuan, ya, dari seluruh dunia, dan mungkin Indonesia is perhaps the largest number of participants and members, yeah, in the network. We have around maybe 24,000. Yeah. Jadi dari 250 ribuan itu mungkin Indonesia dan India lah yang terbesar. Ya. Indonesia mungkin kira-kira antara 22.000 sampai 24.000, ya, peserta. Jadi kalau jadi anggota di situ you have full access ke online library-nya dan network dari para ahli dan pakar-pakar etika dunia. Globe Ethics also has regional offices, ya, kantor-kantor regional, ada di Latin Amerika, ada di Afrika, Afrika Selatan, Afrika Barat, Timur, kemudian ada di Cina, di Indonesia, di Asia Timur ini ada di Yogyakarta di UGM. Ya. Jadi Globe Ethics punya MOU juga dengan UGM. Ya. Saya sendiri, Diki Sofyan, saya sekarang jadi Vice President untuk Globe Ethics sejak 2-3 bulan yang lalu, ya, dipaksa Christoph ini, tapi saya tidak akan terjemahkan. So I just stated that I'm a Vice President of Globe Ethics, and yes, and that you forced me to become the Vice President of Globe Ethics. So today we will be discussing Professor Stuckelberger's book, very thick book, ya, on Globalance. Ya. Jadi hari ini kita akan bicara tentang buku Professor Stuckelberger yang I think it's like 400 pages, 500 pages? 850. Oh, I'm sorry, ya, 850 pages long, ya. 850 halaman. Ya, itu buku yang biasa kan dibaca oleh mahasiswa-mahasiswa filsafat, toh. So sudah hampir 1 mingguan ini beliau di UKSW, Universitas Kristen Satya Wacana, sebelumnya juga kemarin di dengan Bioethics, sebelumnya di UIN, sebelumnya di Universitas Aisyah. Jadi Globe Ethics is, Christoph is quite familiar with Indonesia. He has been here for many times, gitu ya. Tapi the first visit was probably 20 years ago, gitu ya. Jadi beliau sering datang ke Indonesia, tapi mungkin perjalanan pertamanya itu 20-an tahun yang lalu. Jadi hari ini beliau masih tetap sebagai founder dan yang kita sebut honorary president, gitu ya. So without further ado, I'd like to give the floor to Christoph, please. Kasih tepuk tangan dulu, yuk.
Thank you very much, Patiki Sofyan. It's a great pleasure to be here. Thank you for the invitation. You may not know how famous this professor is. He's coming from here, but he's working worldwide, including for Globe Ethics in Geneva and worldwide, Globe Ethics Indonesia, Globe Ethics East Asia region. And I'm very happy to be here because Indonesia, without flattering you, is really a dear country to me, but also geostrategically and in the world of growing importance. I think we have an issue that Indonesia is not known for many in the West, or they just know that it exists, that it's an important country, but the potential and the also regional and global importance is probably underestimated in my perspective. But we'll come back to that. Now, my topic, and thank you for understanding that I'm not speaking in Bahasa Indonesian, but in English, Global Balance Towards a New World Order. I published the first version and wrote the first version of the book during COVID, and the first version was called Global Balance Post-COVID. So what is the changes provoked by this global pandemic? We all have been affected. But 2 years later already, I revised it, first version 2020, then 2022, towards a new world order, because we have seen that more is at stake, but just to go back to normal after COVID. We are in a situation which is challenging, which is promising, which is threatening, where we are in transition of power shifts of a bigger size. And the question is, what does it mean in this power shift to have a harmonious, balanced world? And Java is, and Indonesia is a key country to represent harmonious living together, if I may start with that summary. But now let us go to the content. I start with a Greek philosopher, Heraclit, that was about 2,500 years ago, when he said panta rei. In Greek, that means panta means all, and rei means flows. Everything is in constant flow. And I use here the picture of a river. So imagine we are in a river. We have to constantly adapt, like a fish. A fish cannot stay in a river. In a lake, yeah, it can be a bit quiet. In a river, without every second has to move, otherwise the fish is washed away. And this is a very interesting picture to say life is a flow, is not static. We're sitting on a chair, but you know when there is an earthquake, I have never experienced an earthquake, but you know how it is when everything is shaky and you feel, oh, it's not stable. But also the positive side, life is life, and as long as we breathe, it's moving. Once we are dead, it's static. So the second sorry, just one question. Yeah, so when we take this picture, this is another picture, you know the balance, huh? You have two people and they balance up, down, but this is a complicated balance, different layers and different people. One is the person with a mask, huh? COVID or whatever, protection. The other one is a young person jumping to the balance. The third is a soldier. And you imagine it's very difficult on this balance to find the right equilibrium, as we say in Latin. Now, that leads me to the analysis of, I start with the so-called isms, a polarized world of isms. If you look at today's world, then we see a growth of isms. What is an ism? Isms are ideologies which often absolutize one value above all others. You say, Islam is my value, or fundamentalist Islam, or liberalism is my value, and all the others are below that, or whatever, populism. So you see the whole list here, and I describe all of them in the book on almost 20 pages, and the ism is the opposite of what I try to explain in this book and in this lecture. We have absolutism, protectionism, sexism, racism, ethnicism, fascism, conspirationism, and so on. Now, we are in a complex world, but if we simplify, I come to the conclusion that we have mainly three lenses. The first is the power lens. Like glasses, we see everything through the question of power. Who has power? How can I get power? How can I avoid to lose power? My power first. Here it's between China and US as a power struggle, but we can take any power between political parties. So you had elections 2 days ago. Politics is about power, to get power, to maintain power, to increase power, to lose power. And then, of course, it's a question for what. But here I say my power first, then this is an attitude where I say power, power, power. It doesn't matter for what, I just want power. The second is my money first. I'm not so interested in power, but in money, in wealth, in prosperity. And of course, it's linked to power. I cannot have more money if I don't have some power. But the power is not the goal. The money is the goal. Now, the third lens is our common values first. And that would be my lens as an ethicist, and Paticki's lens as a professor in yeah. I think you see it without my pointer, but oh, sorry, that's for changing. Sorry, I think it's okay. So you see that, yeah. So if we say not my power or my money, but we have common goals as humanity, as Indonesians, as Muslim, as Christians, and as male, as female, whatever we have as our identity, what are our common values, and we put them in the first rank. Now, if you have opposites, we have different ways to deal with it. And that is true for political opposite, for ideological, for religious, whatever. The one is, I have to destroy the other in order to dominate. If I want to be the superpower, I have to eradicate my enemies. Otherwise, they are in danger. I am in danger to lose my position. I am the father, or I am the mother. I want to have the say in the family, and all members, my wife, my children, should obey what I say. That's also, of course, I would not destroy the other family members, but I want to dominate. The second is to merge. If I cannot dominate, why not merge? Two companies, two in the pharmaceutical industry. We had the famous merger of two pharmaceuticals in Basel, and they became a new entity with a new name, now Novartis, very famous. And that was a merger of two competing pharmaceutical companies in order to be the biggest, or one of the biggest pharmaceutical companies in the world. The third is innovation. We create a third entity. We can take the example of parents. A child is not just the same as the parents, is an old entity, an innovation, if we want to compare it. It's and we say, yes, let's do together something new. That's a third way of dealing with opposites. And parents may not be opposite, but are two distinct entities, the mother and the father. The fourth is the synthesis. That means we try to synthesize. We remain two entities, but we have many connections and try to find the common ground. And the balance is that opposites are in constant relation and interaction of dynamic balancing and thus creating and procreating life as an ongoing evolutionary process. We can take companies, we can take religions. Here in Indonesia, you find, in my perspective, you constantly try to find a good balance, for example, between Muslim and Christian communities. And that is, you have to adjust. There are demographic developments, gender developments, there are political frame changes, and so on. So you adjust, but with the goal to have a balanced, harmonious living together. Now, what are the, if we say values first, what are then the values that we say are our common objectives? And I had the chance in the last 4 decades to teach on all continents, literally, and to compare. Why did I teach and train around the globe? Because I wanted to find out what do we have in common and what do we have in difference, and how can we live unity in diversity or diversity in unity throughout the continents. And this motto, I must also say, of Indonesia, unity in diversity, is one of my key mottos, and also of Globe Ethics Net, Globe Ethics Foundation. Now, values are these benchmarks of orientation. We say we want to stick to these and these values, and I found across the globe these 11 or 12 or 10, that is not so important, which are we have in common: responsibility, freedom, justice, equity, peace, security, community, inclusiveness, participation, forgiveness, stewardship. Of course, we can have 8 or 15, but the core is here that we have a tree of values, and the same with virtues. Virtues are individual benchmarks of character. If you say this is a personality with virtues, it's different from an institution. The values you can put at the entry of UGM. These are the core values of our university. Virtues are individual. We cannot say an institution has humility. The persons have humility or courage, but the institution can encourage and empower individuals to live humility or modesty. Now the key of this is that these are branches of a tree. That's why I like to say the universe of values is like a tree, and they are interconnected. These are not just stars somewhere in the free-floating stars in the universe. They are connected, and that's one of the key issues now for balance. If you go to the next one here, that's the same like a tree, but in terms of a circle, to show the relations. Every value is or should be related to the other values. I take security and freedom on the left side. There's one thin line between the two. Some people say, I want freedom, freedom above all. My country or my family or me as an individual, I want as much freedom to act what I want to do. But then we have a security problem often, because then also the criminal says, I want my freedom, I do what I want. no regulation of the internet, no regulation of police. It's a Wild West kind of situation. Then you may say, no, security first, because freedom is destructive, destroys our communities. So we need a strong authority, we need a strong leader, we need, even if it's an autocratic person as a president, more important is that I have security and I'm willing to forget about my freedom of decision. Because if I have freedom but I'm killed, it's not worth. If I have security but no freedom, I can still leave, you know. So they have an opposite. Now the balance would say, yeah, we need both. We need the relation, we need some freedom of decisions, but we need also security. And the same you can do with all the relations between these values. The same is true for the virtues. I call them relational values and virtues, or interconnected. They are connected between them. And I take here the example of the top and the bottom. Self-confidence is very important, that we teach also, and we leave with the students, I'm saying that as a teacher, that you get self-confident. You have a personality, you can be proud of you, you learn, you get exams, you make your way. That is a self-confidence. But then this could be overwhelming, you know, and say, okay, I made it. I have my bachelor. I'm the best in the world. I'm the champion. And then self-confidence becomes a kind of stupid overestimation. Then, if it's balanced with humility, you would say, yes, I'm self-confident, but I'm still a modest person. You can combine self-confidence with humility or with modesty. The opposite would be, oh, I'm a modest person, humility is my value, I'm a nobody, I don't want to speak, I'm small, I'm only a woman, I'm only this, I'm only coming from a village, you know. Then you have no self-confidence. That's the opposite, which is also wrong. So balancing humility or modesty with self-confidence then gives a mature adult personality who can contribute to the world without overestimating and without underestimating the own value and capacities. So that's another example of balancing. Now, we can show that in another way in a graph. You know, you have this button and you can move from left to right, like the volume on a computer. The first is the value, maybe I'll show it here, what I explained. You can say freedom above all, unregulated financial markets, for example. Or you can say security, planned economy, no free market. We need a central government who does a planned economy, forced equality, and you see also in political terms, the first one would be the extreme capitalism, unregulated markets. The second would be a planned state economy, as it was in communist countries, and the Soviet Union, for example. Free market, no, that's not for us. We need strong regulation in order to have equality. And then the third is this balancing of freedom and security. Now, this concept means we have what I call the and not the or. We combine instead of exclude. Opposites as two sides of the same coin. You know, every money has two sides. Every coin has two sides, but it's one coin only. So if we have this image and say, balancing means we are one coin with different sides, or thank you very much for the coffee. Appreciate it. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. So a balanced system is an inclusive and not an exclusive system. You or me is excluding. Either you survive or I survive, but we cannot be together. Values-driven, not values-denying, unity in diversity, holistic, not fragmented, and I don't read the whole list. Now, you may say, yeah, but this system sounds interesting, but is that a new system? And I say, no. It's a very old system. And if we look back 3,000 years of religions and philosophy, you know that the Taoist yin and yang with this symbol. So one circle, but with two parts. And the yin and yang in Taoism is this effort to balance female, male, whatever you see as yin and yang. In Judaism and Christianity, we have this, what we call the double commandment of love, or the double commandment. Love God, love Allah, and the other as yourself. So, balancing me and you is the core commandment in Judaism and Christianity, and also in Islam. I mean, the Abrahamic religions together have this balance. And the balance is possible because we have a supreme divine power which enables us to balance, because we are all humans. We are children of Allah, so to say. We are called to obey the divine, and that allows us to see each other as humans on a, I don't say same, but similar level of dignity. And the same we see in Islam, and I still will ask Padiki to teach me more about Al-Mizan. It's a very interesting concept that also in Islam, and I quote here the Quran 55, this balance is a key for justice, as it's mentioned here. The weight in justice, and do not make deficient the balance. And that is then also including the balance with the non-human world, with the environment. Nowadays, we are aware that we cannot have balance between humans without balancing with the nature. And a very interesting study was done by UNEP, United Nations Development Environment Program, Al-Mizan, a Covenant for the Earth, adopted by all the Islamic states only recently. So the balance is not something that I invented. It is we have to rediscover it. The same if we go back again. In Egypt, there was a goddess called Ma'at. In German, we have the same word. German is my mother tongue. We call it Maß, moderation. And the two wings of this goddess is the balancing. Every bird cannot fly with one wing, you know. That's also observing nature. So they used this wing picture as the goddess of balance. In Buddhism, the balance through mindfulness, meditation, inner balance. This poster, the golden rule, love the other as yourself, is shown here as a rule in all world religions. And then the African concept of Ubuntu is similar. I am because we are. I cannot be isolated from the community. The community cannot exclude me as an individual, otherwise it's not a community, an inclusive community. So I just want to show that this concept is valid across and even centuries, and even in gender balance, for example, also important topic today, or earth balance, Al Gore, Confucius, harmony as the core value in Confucian ethics. Now, that can even be adapted to human rights. You know, there is always a human rights clash. America is attacking China, you violate the human rights, then others say, but you in America violate the human rights. And all is about which human rights you have in mind. The original level was, as you know, the first generation of human rights were the political and individual rights. The right to speech, the right to vote, the right to, for free assembly, and so on. This was the key after the First World War. But then came a second generation with 1966, the UN International Covenant on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights. In the 60s, the first development decade, countries said, yeah, but individual rights is not enough. If we have hunger, it's meaningless to go to vote. If we starve from dirty water or hunger, what is democracy for us? We need economic rights. We need the right to job. We need the right to work. And then we need cultural rights, rights of indigenous people, rights of tribal people, and then the gender rights, rights of female and male. And the third generation, then 20 years later, in the 80s, was community rights. Humanity and the UN said, yes, political rights, okay, social, cultural, economic rights, okay, but these are still individual rights. And Africans came and said, yeah, but we are community-oriented. I don't want the right only for me as an individual, I need the rights as a community. The same then, the Arabic world, in the Middle East, there was a community rights declaration, I think, from Egypt, in the, I mentioned it, 2004, Arab Charter on Human Rights, which was a community-oriented human rights charter, and the African Charter on Human Rights in the 80s. So, why I mention that? Because the human rights discourse should also be a balanced one, and say, we should not just pick one and say, if US attacks China and says, China, you violate the, some rights in the Uyghur region. I'm teaching in China, so that I'm a bit familiar with it. And then China comes back and say, but you are violating the right to life because, to food, because you have 7 million Americans who go hungry to bed in the US every day. So what are you doing about the right to food? So you see, we need to have a holistic picture. I was invited to give a side event in Geneva at the Human Rights Council with Chinese NGOs on the right to water. And I said, look, if China is able to provide food and clean water for 22% of humanity, 1.4 billion people, that's a major contribution to human rights. So we should criticize violation of individual rights, but we should also recognize the contribution to human rights in each country. The same we could say for Indonesia. You contribute a lot to human rights. The right to food is still the first one, and many others that you contribute the right for religious freedom. You live it in this country, just as an example. And here you see then also balancing the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals. These are again not some stars free floating. Oh, I'm looking for zero poverty. And the others say, no, that's not important. I look for gender equality. They are related. That's why I put them also in a circle. 17 SDGs, which are all related to each other. Even if we put an emphasis on one or the other, they are related. So I think you get the meaning of this system. Now, before I continue, maybe I open already a short round if you want, have a question of understanding or a remark on that part before I continue. Please feel free.
Any questions or comments? Pertanyaan atau komentar? Monggo silakan. Atau mungkin butuh klarifikasi? Monggo silakan. Bisa dalam bahasa Indonesia atau bahasa Inggris.
Okay, thanks for your explanations. Really appreciate it. I'm gonna point out the things in terms of environmentalisms, and you mentioned also about the global balance and sustainable development goals, and the environmentalisms. I think I haven't heard the considerations of war of there. I mean, like now we're facing tremendous problem in our environments. Let's say like biodiversity, low sea level rising, climate change, global warming, whatever in terms of environmental disasters.
Sorry.
And I think if we want to engage in the environmentalisms and also we consider the global and now, the title of book, there's a term now, so notice we are having tremendous problem in our environment. So if we, I mean like, do not talk about the engagement of the political wars, warfare, and whatever in terms of conflict, how to think about that? I believe that there is a correlation between the environmental global movement right now and the opposite. I mean, like there is another, they try to, I mean, like make attentions over there to, I mean, like against the environmental global movement. Let's say like a lot of countries, they, I mean, like released a lot of airstrikes. So that's really, I mean, like we can read the environmental damage caused by them. So how do you consider about that? Okay.
Maybe one or two more and then I react. And we have more discussion time also after.
Satu dua lagi kalau ada komentar, pertanyaan. Tadi namanya siapa, Mas?
You can also say it in
Okay.
Indonesian if you like, but
Nanda.
no, it's okay.
Nanda.
Yeah.
Nanda.
Ada lagi pertanyaan, komentar? Okay, maybe you can answer that one first.
Okay.
On environmentalism.
So, thank you for the question. You know that if I say the isms are one-sided, sorry, I need to connect to my battery. If we say the isms are one-sided, it does not mean that we need to emphasize one or the other aspect in a specific situation more than others. So, if we say a global environmental movement is now important because that's the priority of the time, that is important. Myself, I'm since decades in environmental issues and concerns, from climate to whatever. But it becomes an ism if we say all other dimensions, then we have to forget. Environment only. Because then it means, for example, you may disregard the importance of economy. We need to produce food. Now, how can we produce food and protect the environment? We can. We know. There are many possibilities. So we need to have an environmental protection, but not as an absolute ism, but combined with the other objectives that we have. But that means we may put an emphasis on environment as a first priority if the environment is destroyed. For example, to provide food in an environmentally friendly way here in Indonesia with so much fertile land is possible, biological food production and so on. But if we say we need, for economy, we need to cut the Kalimantan forests because this gives us income as a country or for a company, then we say no, that we can have other sources of income than cutting the virgin original forests, you know. So then each situation has to be analyzed from the perspective of global balance and the priorities then for a specific situation. Any other?
Ada lagi?
Otherwise,
Yeah, go ahead,
okay.
please. State your name, please, first.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Dio. I want to propose a question that is I think, a very fundamental one because the theme for this discussions is global balance, and I think I kind of want to address what sort of balance that you may state in your presentation today, because I feel like the balance is the key thing to our discussion today. I mean, is there any sort of like models of layer of balance that you would address more? And what sort of balance is like, do they have a two stable format or models, or they overstepping each other? In the example that you give us with freedom and security, do they collapse to each other, or they have this sort of compartment over each other? I think that's my question. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. When I continue, I will answer partly with continuation, but one remark. If you remember then this first remark on being in a constant flow of a river, or on a balance where we have to find all the time a new balance, that means in each situation I would recommend we analyze which value is overemphasized and which value is underemphasized, and we have to put more value or more weight on the other value. You know, in a totalitarian state where everything is controlled, I need to say, I'm sorry, I cannot breathe. I'm like in a prison. So I need to open the doors. I need to even to take the risk of a little bit less security. So then I go there. And then if the door is open and everything is washed away and the chaos is coming, then you may say, no, now we have to close the door for a moment in order to stabilize and so that is a bit the situation. And that needs how to say, this needs energy, and this needs courage to constantly adapt. And politics is somehow constant adaptation, but also in our faith, you know, when we pray, our daily prayer as Muslim or as Christian, we pray for guidance to find the right balance every day. We don't say prayer once a year, that's enough, and then we know what to do for the next year. we say we constantly have to be in this, in religious terms, in this connection with the absolute, with the benevolent, with the divine. There are different names for Allah, you know. So I think that's in the religious praxis. We also know that balance is a constant effort. The same in education. Parents, we know, you know, we cannot say, oh, that's done now. I told my child not to do, then tomorrow I have to tell again, you know. Anyway, thank you. Let me continue, then we have a next round of discussion. Now, the question is, what are the ways of transformation towards global balance? If you have an imbalance, then that is somehow related to your question of models of global balance. If you are in an imbalanced world or situation, how can we balance it? And I don't go into details of this, and you may not be able to read it in the back, but the columns, the first is reform. We try to adjust, and I think that is the main also job of politics. If you have a very secular situation and you want to bring back some religious values, how to correct it in a reformist way? Reform and then on the dark blue you see economic power, innovation power, data power, legal power, military power. So in all these, what is reform? A second would be revolution, to say we cannot solve it, we need a revolution, we need a total break with the past, otherwise we cannot find a new balance. The third would be then a counter-revolution. Often after revolution, then the other forces fight back, you know, with a counter-revolution to establish the former imbalanced order, to re-establish. So we can analyze all these strategies. What is the adapted, the best one in a specific situation? So I don't go into details, but just to show you there are strategies of thinking of how to make the shift. For example, from a money-driven mindset to a value-driven mindset. From a pure power politics to a value-driven politics. Sorry, somehow, okay. These are just additional topics, religious power, historical power, disasters power. How can we learn from disasters? You are in a country where you are faced with natural disasters regularly, unfortunately, but that learned also, that's what I highly appreciate, if you may correct me, but you have a special skill for resilience, a resilience which is higher than in many other countries. You know, in Switzerland we are quite in a secure, we have no earthquakes, we have no war. If there is something happening, we are suddenly shaky and unsecure. You are much more used to disaster situations in different terms, and that means you have a bigger resilience. I may be wrong, but that's my perception, why I appreciate highly your way of dealing with problems. Now, my second part is how to come to, somehow not working. Okay. In the second part of this 850 pages book, or 500 of the 850, is then the application. How can we now, and that is a bit what you asked for, models of global balance, how can we then apply it? And you see I apply it throughout the sectors of life. Globalization, deglobalization, then the planet, technology, environment, health, the economics. Which economic system is a balanced system and which one is promoting the extremes and the polarization? Politics, geopolitics, nation states, leadership, religions, culture, what is gender balance? And again, that is not one answer for all. Depends on the country context, on the religious context, on the cultural context. What is balanced education? Is it an education which is focused on only technology or knowledge, or is ethics part of the education in order to get balanced people, educated people? People, generation, urbanization, a big issue, migration, not only international, but what is a balanced migration inside the country? You know it also here, a bit less than in other countries, but the urbanization is a big issue. So we cannot have a balanced country if everybody is driving to the cities. What's then happening with the farmers who have no workforce because nobody wants to be a farmer? I was in the village, of a small farmer's village, 1 hour from Salatiga in the mountain. These 350 farmers, they said, we have a problem. The young people want to go to the city. They don't want to do the hard work in the field, and the farmer's image is low. They want to go to white-collar jobs, as we call them. So how to motivate people to do the rural work? We all know without farmers we die all. So farming is the first profession of humanity. But how to validate it is a question of balancing urban and rural situations. So I try to develop all of that and show examples. And I take a few examples. In business, we have the so-called shareholder principle. You know, the shareholder is the one who holds the share, who owns the company. So you may have a majority shareholder, or you have 100 or 1,000 shareholders, they own the company. And the shareholder concept says they own the company, that means they have the say. They can decide, and they have the responsibility and the freedom to take out the money that they need or want, and that's their right. The stakeholder relationship is then, there are other groups in the society which have a stake. The people who consume the products, the state who wants taxes, the community who wants jobs or wants a safe environment, does not want a factory which pollutes the air, because those who are suffering from air pollution are not only the employees of the company, but the people around. So all these stakeholders means you have to combine or balance the shareholder interests with the stakeholder interests. That is widely accepted nowadays, in theory, in practice not really. So modern business, a balanced business, means you balance the interests of your different stakeholders. As a company, you want to, you pay your tax to comply with the laws and to maintain the infrastructure you use. You comply with the education community, and so on, what I mentioned. So you see, the first one would be all the responsibility is with the shareholders. So the shareholder above all. The second is all rights with the community. Yeah, you shareholders, you have the money in the company, but we have the say. We are the community. Or the state dictates, and then the shareholders say, oh, sorry, we leave Indonesia and we move to another country. Because we are shareholders, we want also to have our say. And the balance would then be a shared and integrated responsibilities of all stakeholders in the community. That's for the business sector, an example. So coming back to your point of models of balance, that would be a balanced model, the stakeholder concept for a company. We can take another example of a nation state, the balance between sovereignty and solidarity, and you see the two values, solidarity and freedom. Sovereignty is an expression of freedom. A state says, we are Indonesia, we are a sovereign state. We can say what is valid within our borders. But then we have a problem. Indonesia, as all the states, are not only sovereign states, they are also part of the global community. Member of the UN, member of the non-aligned movement, member of ASEAN, and so on. So how to balance now sovereignty and solidarity, or sovereignty and dependency from other countries? So the freedom part would be sovereignty above all. Nobody has any say in Indonesia. But if you do that, you are like North Korea. You are like on an isolated island. Companies will not come. Tourism is not possible. And all the rest of an isolated island. So that is the sovereignty above all. The opposite is, yeah, we have nothing to say. We are, as a sovereign country, we delegate all powers to the community or to the international level. And the third is then again the balance now on political level. Now, the next one, and I make it short because it's not the main topic, but it's also important. Balance is also important for the religious communities. And we worked a lot, and Patiki is also an expert in interfaith dialogue. We need to look also at the Holy Scriptures. And I developed this model showing, and my origin is theological ethics, so I'm a theologian by origin. And if we read the Bible, if we read the Quran, if we read the Bhagavad Gita, if we read the Holy Scriptures in the different religions, I describe 5 types of interpreting Holy Scriptures. And the question is now also which one is balanced or not. The fundamentalist type of interpreting Holy Scriptures, and I'm speaking about plural, not about Islam or Christianity, they exist in all religions. You know, the fundamentalist Jewish are now in power in Israel. The fundamentalist Christians helped in the US to the incoming president to come to power. So religion, fundamentalism is everywhere. They say, we have the truth. We know there is one truth and we cannot interpret the holy text because there is only one interpretation. That is fundamentalism. I abbreviate, of course. It's simplified what I say. The opposite is the liberal. No, we are contextual, we are modern, we can interpret the Quran as we need, the Bible as we need. The third is the orthodox on the right side, which is not fundamentalism in the extreme sense, but we want to be faithful to the tradition. in Christianity, we have the saints, we have the scholars, the classical scholars, they tell us how to interpret the Bible. Same, you have the schools, Islamic schools, who teach us how to interpret the Quran. That's the orthodox model. The mystical model is then more the inner revelation. Sufism is a mystical movement within Islam. Christian mystics say, yes, I have a deeper understanding than this superficial reading of the holy texts. And then the reformist in the middle, in my view, is the most balanced in terms of keeping tradition and contextualization in a balance. We are Muslim in an Indonesian context is different from Muslim in an Arabic context or in an American context, so we have to contextualize but still being faithful to the Quran. It's still our common Quran, the same with the Bible. So you see, even in reading the holy texts, we can be extremists or we can find a balanced understanding of the holy texts. So, and I find that, again, Indonesia, you found, in my understanding, a way of balancing which is really interesting and to some extent could be example for other countries. I mean, you have so much diversity here. We have so much diversity in Indonesia, but still you try to keep it together. And it's a constant redefining. So Pancasila, in my understanding, and please correct me, is that these dimensions, the 5 dimensions, you try to keep together and say these have to be balanced. These dimensions have to be balanced. And this, together with the motto of unity in diversity, is, in my view, a model of balancing. That's why I think, but please correct me, you have probably a better understanding what balance means than other people or other cultures, which are a more extremist culture. They always have the pendulum between extremes. One extreme, then the next extreme of religious fundamentalism, then secular age, and then go back. You know, Europe is less balanced in my understanding, has more extremes than here. I hope I'm wrong, and I'm working that other continents work also on this kind of balance. Another example is then on globalization, balancing interdependence and independence. I mentioned it already. Also on globalization, you know, how can we have a globalized world where we work together? I'm happy that I can come here. And even the visa was so easy to enter. And at the same time, I respect that you have your sovereignty. So how to have a globalized, interdependent world, but at the same time some national or even regional or local sovereignty. Yes. My last slide is, we discussed that already once. It's not by chance that Indonesia is a founding member of the non-aligned movement, 1956, if I'm correct, or 61 it was formed. But so what does it mean? Non-aligned means in the Cold War between US and Soviet Union, many countries said, oh, we don't want to be either US or Soviet Union, either West or East or Russian and now Russian. We want to be something different. We want to be a third independent entity. And over 100 countries joined the non-aligned movement. And so then it lost its importance with the globalization. But now, that's my second paragraph here, a new polarized world develops. It's not so much US-Russia, Soviet Union was dismantled, but US-China. And the question is now, are we in a new polarized world, and what does it mean for countries of the non-aligned movement? And I'm teaching also and traveling across Africa. Many African countries are in this question. Do we align now with the US? Do we align with Russia? Do we align with China? Do we align with Europe? Do we align with everybody? And then they are forced. US say, if you do trade with China, you are my enemy. So either you are for China or you are with us, US. So the trade war is affecting even Indonesia. I think you are still a non-aligned or multi-aligned country, but the more the polarization increases, the more Indonesia will be under pressure, like many other countries, to say, I'm in favor of this or that. And that is what we don't want, because that is then the poles become strong, and those who are interested in a balanced world are somehow divided. And that's what the superpowers want. They want every other country to be on their side. They are pulling and pushing. Please come on our side. And we can analyze now every Southeast Asian country. Philippines was in favor of China. Now the new president is in favor of US. And no balance, you see. Now, this is the geopolitical challenge of global balance. And I close with, I call it my egg, is a summary of this book. I call it, I Still Have a Dream. You know, Martin Luther King, the American nonviolent person who fought against American racism. He had a dream in his motto. So I have a dream that superpowers cooperate, suspicion is converted to trust, escalation is turned to de-escalation, domination is replaced by participation, innovation is balanced with conservation, competition is combined with cooperation, extremism is defeated by the respect of opposites, power and leadership are executed with integrity, the golden rule of reciprocity becomes true, self-confidence is balanced with modesty, soft water is stronger than hard stones, that's a quote from Taoism, freedom and justice kiss each other, that's a quote from the Old Testament, hate is transformed into love, death is integrated in life, love will never end, I have a dream. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Professor Stuckelberger. Saya mungkin tidak terlalu banyak komentar, tapi tadi ada beberapa pointers ya. Jadi buku ini awalnya judulnya itu Global Balance Post-COVID, tapi kemudian in the second enlarged edition, ini sekarang judulnya sudah berubah ya, Global Balance Toward a New World Order. Tadi Prof. Stuckelberger sudah menjelaskan betapa kompleksnya upaya untuk membalance ya, dunia ini dengan beragam ideologi, dengan beragam values, ya, nilai-nilai dan virtues. Tadi beliau membedakan antara values sama virtues. Jadi kalau values itu kolektif, grup, organisasi, tapi virtues itu menyangkut masalah individual dan personal. Beliau juga bicara tentang lenses ya, untuk melihat dunia saat ini yang didrive oleh power, money, sama values gitu ya. Beliau juga bicara tentang sistem ekonomi yang antara free market, planned market, antara capitalism sama socialism, communism. beliau juga berpikir bahwa dalam rangka Globe Balance ini kita harus berpikir lebih banyak dan daripada atau gitu ya, karena atau itu membutuhkan kita untuk memilih gitu ya antara satu path dengan path lain, tapi Globe Balance ini adalah upaya untuk mengintegrasikan pola pikir kita, perspektif dan ideologi yang ada. Beliau juga bicara tentang Al-Mizan, yaitu sebuah konsensus di antara para menteri-menteri lingkungan hidup dari negara-negara organisasi Islam ya, yang sebelumnya juga didahului oleh sebuah deklarasi oleh ISESCO tanggal 4 Oktober 2019 ya. Jadi Al-Mizan ini adalah terusan daripada dokumen tersebut. Tapi intinya adalah bahwa upaya Profesor Stuckelberger ini adalah untuk bisa melihat dunia itu secara lebih adil, lebih beradab dan lebih sesuai dengan pola-pola pemikiran dari dulu sebenarnya, dari tradisi-tradisi Judaisme, Islam, bahkan sebelum itu ya, Kristen juga bahkan sebelum itu. Yakni tentang bagaimana upaya membangun equilibrium sebenarnya ya dalam pemikiran kita, dalam perspektif dan juga dalam praktek politik kita. Oke, mungkin itu saja demi mempercepat waktu. Apakah ada pertanyaan, komentar lagi? Silakan, monggo. Oke, 1, 2, 3, ada lagi? 4, ada lagi? Alright, tolong berdiri, nama dan questionnya dipercepat ya. Boleh dalam bahasa Inggris maupun dalam bahasa Indonesia, asal jangan Jawa ya.
Okay, good afternoon, Professor. So my question is...
Name please.
Oh yeah, sorry. My name is Sofia. So my question is, every person, every communities has their own epistemic. And when I'm talking about... when we are talking about, for example, like ism or religions, we are talking about not only rationality, but also they choose it using their heart. And also we are talking about epistemic, where people have different epistemic, different knowledge. So when we are talking about balance, sometimes people tend to have like I am the right one because there is different epistemological knowledge, something like that. And how maybe this global balance answer this kind of case. So maybe like that.
All right, thank you very much. Second one please. Tadi monggo Mas berdiri, nama.
Selamat siang, nama saya Muhammad Ilham El Farhani. Saya ingin bertanya soal apakah soal global balance ini akan menuju kita sebenarnya itu kepada nilai-nilai yang universal, dan khususnya untuk bidang yang saya ingin tekuni itu kan salah satu soal global healthcare ethics itu di dalam bioetik itu, kalau misalnya dalam Indonesia sendiri itu tantangannya adalah salah satu tantangan terbesar menurut saya itu perbedaan religi, dan terutama dalam mayoritas masyarakat Muslim, misalnya bagaimana mereka dapat menyikapi soal xenotransplantasi gitu untuk kebaikan itu sendiri gitu. Bagaimana cara mengatasi ketika kita mencoba untuk mengusahakan sebaiknya healthcare itu tetap tercapai gitu sih, gitu.
Okay. Yes, basically he's asking whether this idea about global balance or even global ethics will head ultimately toward universal values. As you know, that Indonesia is based on multi-religious society, and we have different views and perspectives, worldviews on different kinds of things, including bioethics and others. Anas. All right, third one please. Tadi siapa? Monggo. Mas Gil, Leo. Gil.
Mas Dio.
Dio,
If I
okay.
may propose another question.
Please.
As you say in the presentation that you state Indonesia is a multi-aligned movement, I believe with the power-oriented mindset that the geopolitics has towards Indonesia, you said that we are still capable to face the U.S. and the China all together. I think my question is, as a student or as a society, I would say that we are currently being exploited of that phenomena. I wouldn't say that it's yeah. I wouldn't say that it doesn't have the balance of it here, because sometimes if you gave the parameter of what should we do, freedom or society in the sovereignty example, I don't think that the society realized that we are in this distributions of power that most likely affect us in our daily life. And I think if you have another answer to the question I posed, it will be so grateful. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much. The fourth one, last one. We had one more. Yeah, terakhir.
Hello, everyone. My name is Nanda. I already asked. I just wanted to confirmation. Sorry for the inconvenience. I mean, like, I didn't get clear for my first questions. Coming from the isms, the ideology, there is much ideology over there in that book. I just want to point out the global balance here, like you said, this is like kind of movements too constantly, and you have to differentiate the value virtues, and there is much things in the flowchart. I just want to reconsider again and make sure is there any like a particular definitions of balance in each isms over there? Let's say right now like there is a lot of war between countries, and I've been interested in the environmentalism one. Let's say massacre right now caused by war it's not only for human being but also in the environment. So what is the balance here? I mean, like, do we have to sacrifice something, or is there any like something absolute? It's not absolute, but how to say universal in terms of in terms of absolute of those kind of isms. I mean, is there any different definitions of those isms, or all of them are same? I mean, in terms of balance. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Professor Stuckelberger.
That's all.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you very much. Yeah. Sophia, you know, deep meaning, wisdom, your name. So, a wise question. I think it's important to, when we talk about values, that is not only a rational concept, it's also something which has to be linked to emotion. You mentioned emotion, you mentioned the heart. And one of my my life experience is that ethics is only possible if we combine the rational analysis and values, discourse, and philosophical concepts with our heart. I published about ethics and emotion for that reason. I would even go further and say the ground, the basis for ethical behavior comes from the heart, that means from the experience that we face. If we look in the eyes of a suffering child, that's the trigger then to say, this is not possible, we have to do something, you know. So many people think ethics is something we have to study, Confucius and Aristotle and Kant and all these things. That's not the beginning of ethics. That's later a rational understanding and finding criterion. That's what we do as professional ethicists. But the beginning is to be exposed to the reality of suffering. And that motivates us later to find the right balance also. And what is the way to it? I think the listening is the first step. I'm speaking, but listening to the other, and in Buddhism they call it deep listening, or in Islam and Christianity we would say listening means to sit on the chair of the other or walk in the shoes of the other. That is the start of having an understanding of the other, the otherness. Or the philosopher Martin Buber, a Jewish philosopher, they said, I and you, how can we be in a relation while listening to each other and then sharing values? That leads me to the next point, which was Anes, about universal values. Is there something like universal values? Yes and no. Yes, because I'm more and more convinced that, first of all, you are human beings. And as human beings, we have the same basic needs: food and water and shelter, security, education, love. We all need that. But universal values, I combine them with contextual values. That means the interpretation is contextual. For example, gender equality. Some people say that's not universal. The universal value behind gender equality is that we respect each other as human beings. We all are human beings, female, male, children, old people, we are humans, and we respect that every human being has human dignity, as it's in the UN Charter. That's the common value. And then the contextual values, of course, there are differences. We respect each other as human beings, but in the specific context, if you have the will, if you have some cultural adaptation, this has to be combined with the universal values. If we speak only of universal values without contextual interpretation of the universal value, then we tend to be imperialist. I know what is universal, I know what is valid for you, and please follow me. You know, and that is colonialism. Colonialist thinking, ethical thinking was, we in the West, we know what is good for the world, and we are anyway a higher race. I exaggerate, but some people express that. And we know what the true human being is. Others would call it white supremacy. There was also maybe black supremacy, yellow supremacy, but it was mainly white supremacy. So this dominance is gone. We have to criticize that is not the way of respecting each other as humans. So unity in diversity, I would say, means also universal values with differentiated, diverse contextual values or value application. The next is the question of Gilles, feeling of exploited nation. The post-colonial situation, I'm not sure if I got exactly your point. Balance, I may come back to the question of dynamic balance. You know, I say not balance. Balance looks like static. Oh, we are balanced always like this. No. Balance means we are constantly in that flow, and if we are in a situation of exploited nation, we need to emphasize our right of self-determination or of whatever, you know, and the dignity of our culture or whatever. So the independence movement, when I was a student, there was still the decolonization in terms of nation building. The Portuguese colonies, Namibia and Mozambique and all the others, so were still colonies. So I'm still a generation where colonies became independent, and the independence struggle was a daily issue for us as students in the 1970s. So it's not alien for me if somebody says we feel as an exploited nation, and it's still the reality. Decolonization is still going on, is not finished. But I'm not sure, maybe you can help me if I reacted properly or...
I mean, it had to do with the NAM as well, the non-aligned movement.
Yes.
How Indonesia's difficult situation.
Yes, exactly. Thank you for reminding. So the NAM is not easy now. It's not easy, but was never easy. But I hope, and I honestly say that, I hope that Indonesia can play a role as a strong voice in this struggle of dependency from the big powers. I call it from NAM to MAM, from non-aligned to multi-aligned. Non-aligned looks like, oh, we stay outside the world. That's not what NAM is. Multi-aligned means Indonesia wants to be a friend or have trade with China, but also with others. And you need to have the strength to not to be pressed on one side or the other. And that is the difficulty, I think. So I do not have a true answer, but more the hope that many countries try to revitalize this multi-aligned attitude. And I see the same in Africa. When I teach in international relations students, when I talk in Nigeria, in other countries in Africa, most of the African countries say, our philosophy, our politics is non-aligned or multi-aligned. We want to be like that. And that's why also between Indonesia or many Southeast Asian countries and African countries, there is a kind of wish to go in this direction and not to be now to be divided between those in line with that pole or with the other pole. The point 3, last one on isms.
Do we have to sacrifice anything when it comes to rejecting isms?
Yes, the difficulty is that isms are attractive because it's simple, you know. We are, I think we are attracted by isms because then we have simple answers. The world is so complex, we don't understand it. Oh, this president, this leader, this religious leader, this ideological leader, they tell us the truth and we just follow. It's the easy way. But we as academics, you as future leaders, you have another role than just exploit that wish for simplicity by populism. What is populism? Populism is the exploitation of the complexity by simplification and winning the votes by simplification. Follow me, I have the answer. Even if I don't have the answer, but please follow me. And that is the danger today. Too many populist politicians, so let us, and maybe religion, sorry to refer to that, but religion may help us to say, yes, the world is complex, but God is simple. Allah is our reference point, and that does not mean that we have simple answers, but we can live with the complexity of the world without simplifying and running behind a simple ideology. And that does not mean that, as I said, that some isms may have a certain validity for a certain short time of period. Yes, now we are all on environment. That is our priority one. And then jobs and other things come second. As long as we know that is a short-term perspective, and we have to balance it after a certain period. Again, as long as we know that, then a one-sided, I would not call it ism, but a one-sided world activity is justified as long as we know we are still part of this tree and not a free-floating branch in the air. Thank you.
Oke, tepuk tangan untuk Profesor Christoph Stuckelberger. Ya. Oke, sebelum kita akhiri ini, Profesor Stuckelberger ingin memberikan oleh-oleh sedikit dari Switzerland kepada mungkin kedua dosen-dosen kita yang terhormat ini. Monggo silakan mungkin ke depan, Profesor Stuckelberger. Would you like to go to the front, please, to give your souvenirs?
I would like to hand over a copy of the book to the vice team. And one copy for you. No, stand here with. And one for Patiki, who is our giant of acrobatics. Yes. Do you want me the three of you be all of us? Yes. Thank you very much. Oh, you see the beautiful. Wow. You see the. Thank you. Thank you very much. Picture.